Thanks everyone for joining us. We're gonna talk about keeping current today. Dave Ashton is gonna start us off. He's from KGNU in Denver, and then Sharon Scott from WXOX in Louisville will follow, and then hopefully we'll hear from Randi Zimmerman. And then I guess the question is always if you guys prefer having questions in real time, or if you want, when you're done talking, just specify that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave.
Thanks, Stephanie. And Ursula, thank you for the invitation. I was as surprised as anyone to find that KGNU is understood as a place that is doing well with younger people. We have our potluck tomorrow, and I asked another volunteer if he would like to go with me. And when he was like, yeah, what kind of food should I bring? Can people chew solid foods, or does it all have to be soft? And I thought that was a very mean thing to say about some of our founding volunteers, but here we are. So, you know, the whole idea of staying current, I guess I'll just I haven't practiced this at all. And we'll just try to hit on some different topics about, you know, what we do. I think for one thing, I have to say that, you know, Denver is an incredible draw of young people. It's a lifestyle place to live. And so we just benefit from that just in general. When it comes to our programming and on-air situation, I think we're really benefiting right now from the fact that our music director is a young woman in her late 30s, about to go out on maternity leave and have her second baby. She's starting this young family and, you know, rooting it in the Boulder community. I think like her youth encourages our music programmers to play the new music. She spends a ton of time doing processing of the aspiring artists and label artists that are sent to the station. And she really wants people to play that stuff. So our people are not playlisted. They have every opportunity to play what they want, but definitely her emphasis on new music is really important. Our news director is also a younger mom who has moved here from Mexico. And so she's bringing a bit of an international perspective, which is very interesting because it makes some of the local news stories less precious. And I think when you think of our transient youth population that is swarming our surrounding environment, they're not necessarily so invested in tradition. They could care less in a lot of cases, whether they live or die. I mean, from the way they ride these scooters and e-bikes into traffic, they're crazy. So let's not forget that young people are stupid and crazy acting. So what else about our programming and on-air situation is that it's, you know, you got to remember it's personality driven. The outsized personalities have to shine forth. So the problem there is that it's also tethered to responsibility. Because it's a community radio station in the shared environment. The big personality people don't need to tone it down. They can just make all their podcasts, try to be famous with their little friend groups and have no sense of like foundation. So it's really unique individuals that are have that community grounding. Let's see. So, and my last thing I got to say about programming and on-air stuff is you got to be willing to get in the trenches. And that is really my recurring theme through all of our aspects. What young people don't really care much about is rhetoric. They're as good at it as anyone else. Meaningless talk is their life. So seeing you in the trenches and making sacrifices to get things produced and up on air gives them something to look forward to. And I think all of us, having grown up with radio, we have radio heroes, but who are their radio heroes to be? Who, you know, so basically throwing any like other commitments in your personal life out the window is something with reckless abandon that young people can understand, because they don't have a personal life. They're not planning on the white picket fence and 2.5 kids. That may happen, but so operations and protocols that we've got, one thing that I think is really great is a solid framework of protocols. So, and because I think that young people do respect the rules. They don't like a very willy-nilly situation. It feels dangerous, but they also appreciate lax enforcement. So when there's like these group expectations that you can make individual exceptions for, that's what they're used to in their schooling days and everything else. So also a very strong threat of anti-authoritarianism gains their attention. I'm a big anti-authoritarian. So like I make for a unique like power figure, because I'll just tell you like, yes, of course I'm lying to you. I'm in a position of power. So, an overly earnest feeling of structure it's antithetical. Because they'll pop in and pop out. You won't get the same kind of years of dedication from these people. They want to try everything at least once. So it definitely like you got to harden your heart to saying goodbye a lot more, and to being able to rotate the next people in. In terms of like outreach and community engagement, that's been really successful for us doing live remote broadcasts and getting into the trenches of the nightlife in Denver. We had 3 years of a monthly live broadcast on Sunday nights of our hip hop show from 7 to 10 and our dub reggae program 10 to midnight. So this was a 5-hour package that we could bring to any bar in Denver, which there are way too many of, and nobody has anything going on Sunday nights. So we had 3 different places that were willing to host us over the course of these 3 years. And that really brought in some of the people that are still here. That got shut down because of COVID. And I was like, praise God, because like having a monthly event is like having another full-time job as a promoter and, booking things. But, it was really important. So, to embrace the nightlife and be seen on the scene, I think is also important. These people can just find me places where I'm out and about, where I've got a ticket from our promotions person and just end up someplace. So like, the sense of community doesn't start and stop at the doors of the station. It's actually like the station is the hub, and all of the spokes that come off of it, you've got to go up and down those all the way, go out all the way to the rim and then back to the hub. So our online presence is weak, so bad. If you go to kgnu.org right now, you will say, how could young people care about this at all? It looks terrible. It's not useful. It's not attractive. And I don't think they care, because I think it has everything more to do with that's not. They do everything else on there. They don't necessarily need a fly website from us, but it does need to be functional. And so KGNU was an early adopter. We were one of the first radio stations in the nation to have live streaming audio of what's on air, because, Boulder is a tremendously smart town, and like members of our Electronic Air Collective, the, electronic DJs on the weekends, they're all programmers. So they built the program, one of the earliest streaming programs. So the functionality of it is really essential. And I think one big important piece is the archives, because the young people don't gather around a radio to have an experience. They're so atomized. The thing about the information age, it's not a unifier, it's an atomizer. And everyone is off in their own little rotation, wherever that's swinging them to. So to be able to listen to the station, to a particular program, at your leisure is really, really essential, because it's not like they want to be out of the loop. They just don't have time for that right now. And also for the DJs late at night to be able to, send their shows back to the people back home. show their parents what they're doing, show their friends from college. Those archival links are really important. And when people are coming to a place like Denver, they're seeking for community. And because of all the gentrification that's happening to enable their arrival, there's far and far less community for them to even latch onto. So you got to understand they're more connected to back home, and those archives really help with that. So the organization, staff, and volunteer culture aspect, I got to say, does come to survey results that we did for my master's thesis about like what motivates volunteer participation in community radio. And essentially what motivates it for all age groups is fellowship, for lack of a better word. If that sounds too religious, my bad. But, to be able to connect with people around similar ideas and interests is the number one thing, the connection with people. It's number two is to actually be able to share the stuff out that you know about. So, but the feeling of connection with others is more important than the sharing out, which is why kind of podcasting does seem like an isolated kind of art form or something that is not always rooted in community. I know it runs the gambit. It is certainly all over the place, but we have to kind of talk about like talk shows as podcasts. I couldn't believe it the first time a young undergraduate came up and told me I was his favorite podcaster. And I was like, I didn't know I was any type of podcaster. I just do these talk shows. But we're always on that community pulse. So for these kids from out of town, the fact that I'm really from here and I can really again, dig in those trenches, put on my boots, go out and spend a weekend at a couple community festivals and come back with those stories, they really connect to the people that are trying to find out what's going on here. And also in terms of volunteer culture, we get just like interest groups where, because people, that people are having dinner in groups together that have met through the station. And then they're also booking bars where all of the KGNU DJs are DJing, but KGNU is not related to it. It's just their friend group. And, there's people in that friend group older than me and, people kind of coming in definitely younger. But it's the homies. It's all about the homies. What are you going to do with them? Oh yeah, also online, I got to mention KGNU has 3 platforms. We have our ugly home site, kgnu.org. We have our all news site, news.kgnu.org, where it's more visual. There's photos, there's extended content, there's different features. And then we have our all music streaming site, afterfm.com, which plays all of the KGNU live music shows. But when bummer content like the BBC comes on, preloaded other streaming music happens that's been loaded up with our IDs and our underwriting and stuff, or you can buy other underwriting on the After FM stream platform. So, and all of those things are available through an app. So this whole summer, getting back out into the festival scene that I was talking about, we're trying to get people to download this app so that they can stream us wherever they go. Now, when it comes to the world of branding and promotions, well, color is everything, right? Remember when purple in the 80s was the hippie color for the, the people that kept some hippie love through the 70s? They emerged in the 80s wearing purple. And so KGNU dealt with a lot of purple. Now we're dealing with orange. It's the emergency orange time. The fascist right tried to appropriate orange for their own use, but the orange in the streets started with definitely the leftists. And if you saw African-American out in the street at a demonstration with the orange beanie on, you knew that was one of the most solid individuals out. And so the Brotherhood of the Orange Beanies became we decided to do an orange logo with that. And I brought that information back from covering, all of the stuff leading up to George Floyd in 2020. We had already gone orange. And our fall branding for our fall drive is radio for the people, by the people. And that's really what we kind of keep hammering on, is, trying to reclaim just like a sliver of patriotism from the MAGA crowd. I don't think we've got red, white, and blue graphics to accompany this, but is that too crass? This really is an all-American institution that is not available in other places except like maybe Australia. By being nonpartisan doesn't mean we're middle of the road. It means that we're here to encourage that great American value of freedom of speech and transparency and responsibility towards something verifiable. And not just, I'm sure that many young people think that all talk radio consists of is just right-wing blabber, 3-hour demagoguery, when in fact there's plenty of great community content, but they don't experience that until they're shown. So, we're really looking for people's heart to come forward. We're looking for them to engage their intelligence, give them a sense of home. Why Star Wars is like the greatest movie for a lot of people, and it follows sort of the structure of Homer and the Iliad, is that they travel these far distances, but when they get there, they establish a sense of home. There's a sense of home inside of the Millennium Falcon. And you got to kind of think of how the alienation of modern youth is balanced with a sense of home, and also the sense of possibility. There's all of us worked to establish these organizations as community resources forever, but that doesn't mean that everyone that comes through here, that's what they're going to establish. They may be going on to establish something totally different, but that this is a place for an exchange of ideas, for getting in front of the public in a responsible way. It opens different possibilities for different people. And it's also important to keep in mind that we're asking for free labor, which I think today's young people are acutely aware of exploitation and intolerant towards it. So really, like, the same expectations that people are going to put their shoulder to the wheel that we all embraced, how we were raised, doesn't exist in the same way with people coming of age now. And and it's good to talk to them about these things and to, get out there. And, the whole talking thing, I think, is essential to what I said really at the beginning, that it's about personality. Having these conversations, understanding slang language, having an attuned ability to understand what people are saying under what they're saying, that words don't carry content in the same way that people would have you believe. Young people know that better than anybody, because they'll agree to anything and then not do squat. So it's not about the words, it's about like the whole inveiglement, to use a word in popular Trump's charges are DeSantis charges are kidnapping by inveiglement. But inveiglement means like to compliment and coerce through flowery language. And that is definitely a part of it. Like we can't say thank you enough, and we can't really lean on people too much. We can just kind of have these conversations. So I was speaking about this presentation to wrap up to a friend of mine who was here earlier. I said, she was like, why would anyone think you're an expert on any of this? And I was like, dude, just me and you talking right now qualifies as this. And I was like, aren't you a millennial? And she's like, bro, I'm 40. And so it's like, and she said, I'm either a geriatric millennial or a pubescent Xer, somewhere on that borderline. But also just to let you know, like, those divisions don't really matter. Like, my immaturity is probably far surpasses some of the young people that have grown up and are here now presenting some of their time trying to soak some of this in. So, but my friend who is the geriatric millennial pubescent Xer said you really just have to emphasize fun. Like, think back, being a kid, what was the top priority? It wasn't community building. It was fun. It was kicking it. It was irreverent. It was spreading rumors, having cliques, telling stories about things that are not real, making projections about things that would never happen. So That's how I treat kids like kids. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. That was very thoughtful and fun, actually. Does anyone have any questions for Dave?
Dave, I have a bunch of questions for you. I'll ask you one and then I'll defer to Marie because I see she has a question too. I have a bunch of questions. One question, you mentioned the thing about money, and that's something that I've learned too, is that, you know, it's like you said, we grew up, or I mean, I'm even more than you because I'm a boomer. You know, that volunteering for radio stations was an honor. And so we were eager to do it. But a lot of young people now want to be paid for what they do. And I'm curious how you actually handle that. Like how do you deal with that when somebody says, what are you going to pay me to do this?
That's a great question, Ursula. So it lives on different levels. For the most part, people understand that it's about providing access and helping them build reputation. And that's what I would say, is that reputation is the cornerstone of success. I can't put anything in your pocket unless you come do a hard labor thing. I'll hit you with a stipend, lunch money. You know, I come out of pocket on certain like really physical occasions or different things that require big commitment. Don't tell my boss. I hope that he doesn't watch this. I don't expense that. But when it comes to DJs, professional DJs, people that play out for money a lot, those are my peers. And they're always like, well, yeah, I would come, but it's a waste of my time. And I'm like, so is this conversation. You know, it really, you cannot shift people's personalities. It's those two cornerstones of personality and responsibility. It's just a very rare mix. And if it's just all personality and my own ability, you can't do nothing with somebody.
Okay. I have more questions, but Marie, did you want to go ahead?
Well, I had two questions, and that was one of them. And I too grew up with a sense of volunteering, and I knew what community radio was about. My other question was about the app. Were you able to develop an app just for your station, or do you use something like iTunes, or we use TuneIn?
We developed it in-house.
Okay.
Yeah. I would also say about those people that want money, that maybe there is additional things. You got to look at that as like, okay, they have an outsized sense of their own worth. So you can kind of play into that by creating events around them that feature them. You can perhaps build some goodwill, like some of these people that are always haranguing me about, you know, they'll never get into the rotation. But if I have some fly stuff going on remotely, they're calling me, asking me to get on the next one, because they see that that can help elevate their profile in a better way than like every Wednesday night or whatever. So if you can if it's somebody who you really think is just dynamite, you know, you can build something that includes them, that's not routine.
Yeah. Dave, I also wanted to ask you, I mean, I've been to your station, and for those of you that haven't seen it in Denver, it's it's in a building that houses a lot of different media platforms. I think there's a television station there, and the basement is a large maker space. And I think there's other things going on too that I don't remember. And so there's a lot of feeling of activity and experimentation and exploration that kind of is in the building. I'm curious, how much do you think that contributes to keeping the station moving forward? And so I guess kind of what I'm asking is, how beneficial do you think it is to aspire to, you know, different platforms and different activities that are beyond the broadcast itself, like, like training and other types of production. Just how much do you think that contributes to keeping the momentum going?
It's a great question. So, we're in a place called the Buell Media Center, which we moved into in November of 2020. And, this is the home of Rocky Mountain PBS. It's the home of Kuvo Jazz, The Drop, which is a nonprofit hip hop station. The Colorado Press Association is here, the Associated Press, Open Media Foundation, Chalkbeat Colorado, the Colorado Sun Investigative Reporters Group, the CoLab, and it's a $33 million facility. We're calling it the State Capital of Public Media. And so, we moved here from hippie heaven. And that was a much more artistic space in the art district where we were kind of the big fish in the small pond. There was the cable access show downstairs, the makerspace Den Hack, which has now taken over the entirety really of that building. Community groups that do door-to-door political grassroots advocacy work and petition gathering, all out of that building. And that one was so far more accessible. It wasn't nicer, but people could just roll up on me all the time. So the culture that was established there was way younger than what we have now at our more professional environment. It was more artistic. People come through with a joint burning in their hand. I mean, it's like, it was those community radio kind of pictures. So now it's a lot more stodgy, but our professionalism has ramped up. And also, with all of those other big organizations, we have different levels of access to different people to bring on for news and public affairs programs, and policy people. It's definitely upped our game, but it hasn't made us more attractive to young people. That was the other spot.
Oh, so the place I saw was the one where you were before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now.
So again, my question is: do you think that sharing space or kind of incorporating other activities beyond the broadcast is useful to kind of keeping things moving forward?
Oh, in terms of producing other media, I think when you're hot with that. If you have talented people that are really good at making videos, you can probably get 2 or 3 really good videos, but you probably can't do 15 really good videos. So it's just kind of a moment in time. When it comes to like social media participation, we're one of the worst. I mean, we're trying to get our likes from 4 to 24, literally. And we're doing like a thing with the Posner group to figure out how to do that. There's like half the staff is in these weekly meetings of how to increase your online engagement. And me, I'm like, you got to hit the streets. To me, the actual product is just fine. The broadcast, but and like I said, with those archival ability to push out once it's already aired, that is really the most important thing. I don't think we need to be writing better stuff, posting other stuff. I think we need to be doing a better job in our community of bringing the stories and the voices in. And, it's like when I'm saying these young folks need to look towards a mentor, it can be someone that you're so not aware is looking at you. And they're looking at how you're treating the other adult and trying to bring forth their community piece. And that young person can come up to like respect you and trust you in a way because you haven't changed.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll wait with more questions until we hear from Sharon. Stephanie,
Okay.
Randi is planning to join us, but I think she's been held up, so she'll show up. She will show up. She's just on her way somehow.
And so
Okay.
regret to say I will have to hit the studio here before 3 o'clock and make sure that Metro happens, as I do every
Okay.
Thursday at 3.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Dave. It was great having you so much.
Thanks for the invitation. It's really flattering. And I am going to hang for a few to hear your part, Sharon, but then I'll dip out. And
Okay.
yeah.
All right, Dave Ashton, KGNU, Denver. And we will move over to Sharon Scott with WXOX in Louisville.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Dave. That was super interesting. Just fascinating. Would love to come out and check out those studios one of these days, hopefully. But thank you so much. Really, lots of great points, which I think I'll incorporate into some of what I'm talking about. But so we're WXOX. We're in Louisville, Kentucky, streaming online, artxfm.com. You can get our free apps, WXOX in the App Store. And I believe Alexa is playing WXOX again these days when you tell her play WXOX or play Art FM. So those are some of the things, you know, if the topic is staying relevant, you know, obviously those are big things for us right now. Staying online, being able to connect with people that are beyond our FM broadcast range. So many people now are listening online and connecting digitally. It's just really important to be there. I don't see digital listening as any kind of competition for FM listening. I would just really see it as another extension of our ability to reach audiences. So we actually started as an online station 10 years ago this week. We launched at Idea Festival, which is sort of like a TED Talks type thing that used to happen here in Louisville, where they brought in experts from all over the world and had them speak at the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts. And we started in the lobby there, interviewing the guests and the people coming to Idea Festival and connecting them through our broadcast. And so we're coming up on 10 years of that now. And when we started, it's funny to have seen the kind of revolution, because when we started online, we knew we're Art FM. We've always been trying to get on the FM dial, but we had to wait for the FCC window to apply for our LPFM license. And we had about 2 years, we knew, or we had at least an idea, before the FM license would be available, and then whatever time it took to get online. So we went ahead and launched our station on the internet as a streaming station. And at that time, 10 years ago, people were like, I felt like people were literally like laughing in our face, like, oh, nobody's going to listen online. Nobody listens to music on their computers, you know, this kind of thing. And of course, now, a decade later, we've seen the full revolution where people are now saying to me, oh, does anybody have a radio anymore? Is anybody even listening to the FM? Our answer is definitely yes. I think that the FM is still every bit as relevant as it was 10 years ago. And more. I mean, I think that there certainly was a golden age of radio when people just didn't have other methods of communication, mass communication, instant communication. But I still think that the FM broadcast is extremely valuable. That free, instant communication available to everyone in a community, right there on your dial versus having to find something on the big mess of the internet. All that is, I think, keeping FM relevant. Emergency broadcasting services, of course, you just can't beat radio. So I don't think that there's any problem seeing FM and streaming audio really being hand in hand and working together. So that's what we do at Art FM. We are a family-run radio station, kind of rare in these worlds, but maybe less so in the LPFM community. So I mainly I do the management of the station. I'm the general manager of the station. And my husband, Sean, is the chief operator of the station. And he makes sure everything's running right technically and does all the repairs and troubleshooting and things like that. And so if I'll share my PowerPoint here. Ursula asked me to make a PowerPoint. It's actually a repurposed PowerPoint. So bear with me here. Let's see if it works out. Didn't quite have enough time. Here we go, wait. Okay, am I doing it right? Are we seeing a mini transmitter?
Yep, we are.
Great. This is our very first transmitter that we built before we had an FM license. It's a Part 15 just a little kit that Sean soldered on our kitchen table. Started up with the Duracell battery, played some John Coltrane through this, and I drove around in my car and listened to it. And we got a couple blocks radius out of that, but that was fun. That was our first transmission. And since then, it's just been growing and growing. We have an LPFM transmitter in downtown Louisville. And then we've just added, or we've at least helped a station get on the air, which is WXND 100.9 FM. And they are our sister station, amplifying our signal a little bit further. So when we were starting the station, getting everything going and thinking about how are we going to stay relevant and how are we going to keep connected with the youth of our community and that sort of thing. We figured the cheapest and most affordable, easiest thing actually was just to have a child of our own and chain it to the control room desk. So this is our son, Maxwell. And Max is literally grown up sleeping underneath the control board of the station. He is now a teenager. This was 10 years ago here. And he's now a teenager. And just this past summer, he ran a teen academy in Louisville. He really developed and designed the program. I worked along with him and taught a whole class of Louisville teenagers how to broadcast. And that was really exciting and fun. And he's just had absolutely no choice but to go to every Art FM event with us and participate in every single thing that we've done. And so he gives his input. He helps us design. He's been designing some ads for us now. He's been doing some graphic design in school. And then he just keeps us relevant on the music that kids are listening to now. And I sound like such an old fogey, these kids, but it's some different stuff, and it's hard to make sure that they're keeping it clean. So I think that's the hardest part with getting kids on the radio, is they feel like none of their music is clean enough to go on the air. But they love it, and it's fun, and it's great to have that just kind of natural connection with the youth of our community. This is, again, 10 years ago when we launched at Idea Festival. And here again is Max. He got us our very first sound drop from Janelle Monáe, who was a guest at Idea Festival. That's pretty cool. And here we are connecting Nikki Finney. She is a National Book Award winner with a poet in our community, sort of talking about the art on air. And then this is me interviewing a local artist who's very well known around town, doing really cool illusional artwork. I think maybe somebody has their mic on. I'm getting a little bit of a feedback out there. Here comes my radio here. Can anybody see if you can mute?
Let's see here. Looks like everyone's muted.
Okay, maybe I don't hear it now. I think that's better.
Oh, let me try this.
No, I think it was the man who sits at Amber's computer.
Okay.
He was the only one who wasn't muted.
Calm out, Matilda. Thank you, man. It's at Amber's computer. This is Scott Scarborough. He's a multimedia artist, and we brought him on air to experiment, bring some of his audio experiments onto the airwaves. This is actually at the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts, where the event was taking place. So that was our debut. That was our launch, and we've really been doing this similar kind of stuff ever since, connecting with community members, connecting with national individuals who are nationally known, and bringing them together on the airways. We've really found that's very interesting. And of course that keeps us relevant, because we're connecting with the people who are doing relevant things in the world, and may or may not be young, but they're doing exciting things for the world. And then we're connecting them with people in our community that are doing exciting things around here. So that's worked out really well for us. We've also connected with different institutions and organizations that are doing interesting things. This is Rachel Grimes performing at a Caligari piano. The Kentucky Museum of Art and Craft did a exhibit on an artist. His name is Caligari, and this was one of the pieces. It's a Steinway piano that he actually worked with Steinway and created a custom shell for. And this curator of this event invited local musicians in to play the piano and had a concert series, and we started live broadcasting that. Up here again is another kind of experimental thing that we did. We brought some sound artists in. This is at a local arts festival. It's pretty funny because this is like It's the St. James Court Arts Festival, which I believe is the largest neighborhood outdoor type arts festival in the country. But it's very sort of, I mean, just traditional arts and crafts, wonderful stuff and incredible, you know, artistry and work, but just very, you know, what, you know, you would expect at an arts and crafts festival. And then we brought in this like crazy experimental, we built a radio station for the event where the artists and people could tune in. And we brought in this like crazy experimental thing, and might not have been the best fit for that scene, but at least introduced people to some different things that they can do with radio. And these are some of the performers that were on the Caligari concert series. Then just to get some live broadcasting experience, we connected a band called Big Gigantic, which I don't really even know who they are. But my, you know, some people in our organization really like them, and they were coming to town, and their promoter wrote us like, hey, can you help us promote this show? And I was like, sure. How about we just come out and live broadcast, you know? And they were into that. And we sent, Sean, my husband, went out with our live broadcasting stuff, got a feed from the soundboard and live broadcast the show. So, so that was really fun, exciting. You know, the thing about that is that you just have to make sure that the musicians or whoever are not going to be cussing while they're on stage. And that actually was a problem at this event, but luckily we were not FM at that time, so we didn't have to worry about it. Then we moved into our first, this is our first studio. This was in an arts area, really wonderful arts district. They call it New Louisville now, a little corny, but there've been a lot of museums and galleries and things like that open up in the area, and they would do a First Friday event. And so we used to always have, you know, every month we would have a party, an open studio, special DJs playing, you know, snacks, that kind of thing. And that was really fun and a great way to connect with the community, our local community, as well as, you know, just the people who had come down for the art openings and things like that. So we actually gained a lot of DJs through people just walking through the door that way, and definitely gained a lot of listeners. And then they really just enjoyed getting a look behind the scenes. You know, I think people really like to see like what's going on, and then they really understand like what community radio is when they actually meet the DJs. And, you know, it's just a really rare thing, and people get very excited about that. Especially, you know, we would give them an opportunity to give shout outs and stuff like that. And, you know, people love to get on the radio. So that was always really fun. But we moved out of that neighborhood now, so we don't have these monthly parties anymore, but we do still try to, you know, have events and get out to events, at least before the pandemic. And these are some of the events that we were doing. We would live broadcast the Garvin Gate Blues Festival. This is actually where we were live broadcasting when we found out we were going to get our FM license. So that was a pretty exciting day for us. And these are just another concert. This was a benefit event one of the bands put on for us. This was a resurfaced event where they got like a parking lot and turned it into a concert venue for like a month. And every, you know, Thursday and Friday, they would have a concert down there. And we connected with the people organizing that and live broadcast that. Again, just getting out in the community, meeting people, having people see what you're doing, because they see the setup, they want to come over, like, what's going on here? You know, and that's a really great way to connect with the community. And then, you know, of course, all the fans of the band are tuning in. A lot of times we're getting traveling bands, so they're connecting with their friends back home and letting them know about our online stream. So I think we're picking up national listeners that way. And then this is Unsilent Night, which is a interesting thing. If you guys want to do just like a cool event at in the holiday season, around the winter holidays, Unsilent Night is an orchestra by Phil Klein that he designed, and he recorded it in 4 different pieces. And basically what you do is you get everybody to get a radio or a boombox, a portable radio, or there's even an app that can do it on their phones. And each person randomly gets one of those 4 tracks, but they all play at the same time. You kind of count down and start them at the same time. And then you walk around the city playing this, and it's really beautiful. It's all with bells and things, and it's really beautiful. So we, you know, did that event and other kinds of events like this where we're experimenting with audio and just getting out in the community, and people are going, what are you doing? Like, we'd even walk through restaurants and stuff, and everyone's like, what is happening here? And then I was like, oh, it's Art FM, you know. And so we're kind of build a name for ourselves doing some crazy stuff like that. This is our new building, our beautiful mural by Wilfred Sieg of the Art Cartel. We were just talking about this earlier. We just like to incorporate art into everything that we do, and we are Art FM, so that's we have to live up to our name. So this is just a beautiful mural that Wilfred did for us. We did a community contest. I guess you'd call it a contest. We accepted submissions. We got 30 artists submit ideas, and we worked with the Louisville Visual Art Association here, and they helped us run the contest, offer stipends for art. We first did a portfolio, call for portfolios. And then we were able to offer a stipend to the finalists to draw up designs for our wall. And then the LVA actually helped us pay the artist as well. So that was cool because we didn't have much money, but we were able to get this beautiful mural done with our partnership with them. So connecting with local nonprofits is a really important way just to stay relevant, to stay connected, and stay up with what they're doing. Of course, the museums are having the most relevant artists, hopefully, into their spaces. So if you can connect with that, then you're, really staying relevant too. And you don't really have to do the research to find out like who's relevant. You just connect with certain institutions that are doing great things. This is, like I said, this is a repurposed presentation, but we did launch on Valentine's Day in 2016. So just over 6 years on the FM dial here in Louisville. There's Louisville. And this is our tower. Our tower, unfortunately, is not where we are, but it has a beautiful view of downtown, and it sounds really good all over town. This was our signal launch party, which is just kind of an example of the sort of things that we were doing before the pandemic. Wonderful musicians. We're fortunate in our new building to have basically a duplex, and on one side is our studio and our station, and the DJs working the soundboard and everything over there, and then the performance side and sort of an event space on the other side of the duplex. And we have that fed into the soundboard so that the musicians playing the performance area are able to go out live over air. So this is Will Oldham and the 100 Proof String Band playing at our launch, one of many musicians that performed that day. And that was a lot of fun. And but unfortunately, these kind of parties we haven't been able to do in a very long time. So we've kind of had to just readjust our connection with the community, of course, over the pandemic. But this is our FM range here. Okay, and so again, these are some of the things we were doing before the pandemic. You can see we'd have these wonderful staff meetings with everyone in house. This is Jonathan Richmond, who Will Oldham invited back. This is the last live performance we had in the studio before we shut down for the pandemic. But this is a Jefferson County Public Schools camp that came to our studio for a couple days, and we taught them how to DJ. This is a group from Haiti that came up and was performing for some other, they actually performed at the Smithsonian and some wonderful institutions, and we connected with their promoter and got them to come by. And that was a really powerful experience. And I know that these musicians have had a really hard time since we had them in the studio. And this is some of our staff here, just celebrating a big fundraising win. So we used to just really pack it in, have all kinds of fun parties. We would host parties in other places. These are some parties we had at the Speed Art Museum. They would do a monthly event at our big art museum in town. And we connected with them and brought in music and DJs. And that was fun. And some kind of experimental audio, stuff that people could create their own audio with. We always had an amazing Halloween party. That was the best. And then we have our annual, once a year, we'd have our vaudeville on our birthday at Valentine's Day, which is always a really fun Valentine's event. So those events just are really great for connecting with your community again, just being out there and getting yourself seen as well as heard. And then they find out about you, give them out tons of stickers, and they come home and talk about this great radio station. So that's our number one way that we stay connected and relevant. But of course, the pandemic through all that, suddenly it's like there aren't any events to go out to. We can't host any events in our campus. Like, how do we stay connected with our community? So that's really where we've been for the past 2 years, is trying to figure out, like, how do we keep doing these parties? We love our staff, we love our listeners, we always have the best times together. Like, we want to have good times together still, even though there's a pandemic. And so how do we do that? And Well, for one thing, we got our DJs remote broadcasting. All of them, most all of them anyway, learned how to broadcast from home and set up their own remote studios. And you can see some of them here. And that's been a really cool experience. And it's neat seeing how each of them have a different take on their home studios. And then we would have these online party, like Zoom parties, where we'd have one of the DJs or a round robin of different DJs, depending on how long the event was. Someone would be broadcasting from home, and then also we'd have a Zoom call, and we'd all go to the Zoom call, and they'd have a camera on them while they're DJing. And we'd all keep our cameras, everybody, it would be like a silent disco. So on Zoom, it was a silent disco, and there was no audio. We didn't let anyone have any audio, but you could use the chat features, and you could dance and, hold up signs or whatever. And then people would listen in online through our stream. So, people in the beginning, people thought we should put the audio through Zoom and just people could listen to the audio through Zoom and everything. But the audio is just terrible through Zoom when it comes to music, for one. And two, we wanted to push people to listen through our stream or to get our app or whatever, or listen to the FM, of course. So that's why we decided to do the Zoom, was just a totally silent disco. And those turned out fun. And some of you were at Grassroots Radio Conference might have been able to enjoy some of that. So that was a good way that we were able to just kind of stay relevant while we were all separated by this horrible pandemic. And then, of course, we did host the virtual Grassroots Radio Conference in 2020, which was a lot of fun and really interesting and wonderful to connect with so many community radio stations. We had a lot of great speakers. Thanks to Ursula, we got Chuck D as a keynote speaker, because of course he has the show on the Pacifica Network, And You Don't Stop. So he was glad to come and talk to us about radio and the justice movement. And things were really active here in Louisville at that time after the murder of Breonna Taylor. So it was a really powerful talk with Chuck D. And then we were doing like what we were doing at Idea Festival, and we connected Chuck D with our DJ, our wonderful DJ Tia Marie, and she interviewed him. And that was just like such a cool, amazing interview and such a great thing. So shout out to Ursula for making that happen. Lots of other great speakers, many of them from this group. And so that was a fabulous way to stay relevant, to stay connected during the pandemic. We've done a few national simulcasts. The first one was for George Floyd. We did some moment of silence for George Floyd. And then after the Breonna Taylor thing hit here in Louisville, we connected with Breonna's family, got them to recommend a song that we could play in unison with other community radio stations across the country at the same time. That song was Everything by Mary J. Blige. And we got close to 100 radio stations that played that all at the same time, both in the United States and in Europe. So that was pretty amazing. And then we did a similar thing, a series of 3 broadcasts showing our solidarity for the people of Ukraine. So those are, some of the ways that we've just tried to stay current, tried to stay relevant, not, and trying to understand our power as broadcasters and trying to understand what can we do to help these, terrible situations, or what can we do to elevate some wonderful situations. So, I think that's our biggest thing as broadcasters to think about. How do we stay relevant? How do we stay important? How do we continue to use this radio medium for all the powerful properties it has? But then of course, connecting with youth as well. And this is the youth camp down here this summer. So that's keeping us young and connected as well, all these young individuals. So high schoolers are great to work with, and they really have something to say. So highly recommend, bringing some high schoolers into your staff. And this is the second frequency that we helped Extend Sound get started in our community. And that's been a really fun project too, because now we're even further on the FM. So we're staying even more relevant with the people who only have radios in that area of Louisville. So there we go. And then hopefully we finally just had our final party, our first party, hopefully the first of many parties that back on our radio station campus after the pandemic. So this was actually one of our final parties before the pandemic hit town. So you could tell we're having a great time. We're ready to get back there in this steamy environment, but we're not quite there yet. This last party was outside and we all kind of gathered around the mural and had a lovely picnic outside, but it was just great to have people back in the studio. We did have musicians back in the studio again. And that was just something I've been dreaming of for the past couple of years. So, so we're feeling like we're in a really good place right now, and hopefully everything will just, stay healthy and stay good, and we'll just stay in a good direction. So.
Wow, that's great.
All right.
Thank you, Sharon. You guys have such a fresh energy for events and bringing people together.
Yeah, it's just a great group of people. And I think maybe that's key to staying relevant, is just having a great group of people and they're all staying relevant. And, and then when you have a great group of people like that and you're used to being around one another, you just want to keep it going. So, so it's
Keep
a lot
the
of fun.
party going.
That's right. That's right. It's just, it's.
I love that picture of the rocket too, with the launching.
Oh,
That's pretty creative.
Yeah, I know DJ Kara did that. You guys might remember. Yeah, and so we have all our art is done by we have such a creative staff that we just get all of our graphic design done by DJ.
Yeah, I believe that. It comes through in your pictures.
Yeah, it's fun. We're talented. Not me necessarily. I'm just kind of like directing traffic, but there's definitely a lot of station.
Well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you again.
Sure.
Are there any questions for Sharon?
Greg,
Blew him away.
Greg, unmute yourself.
Go. Sorry about that. Sharon, how did your DJs who broadcast from home, what platform did they use to get the signal back to the studio?
So what we do is we've created a secondary stream. We have our main stream where our listeners tune in online, but we created a secondary stream that's kind of a private DJ stream, and we have them from home generate a stream. So they generate their own stream from home. And then we pick up that stream through our station soundboard and broadcast it out to everyone through our FM and our mainstream. And we use, there's a couple pieces. So I've done a presentation on this before. Maybe, I don't know if Stephanie can provide the link, and we've done some online resources.
Yeah, sure.
And then we've been talking about Stephanie doing another presentation about that, which happy to do.
Yep. I think we have you down for, I'll look it up.
Okay. So you have to get another stream host, and then you get some the DJs get broadcast software, and that software is free if you have a PC. We use Rocket Broadcaster, or one with a terrible acronym. It's called Broadcast Using This Tool. That's short for, it's BUT for short. And then for Macs, there's Audio Hijack is the software that you use, and that's $60, but I think well worth it. So basically the DJ uses that software to connect to your secondary stream, and then your in-station computer picks up that secondary stream, plays it through the soundboard like any source, and that goes to your FM and then to your stream. I can also post a link. We have a web resource too about it, so I can post that also.
We have you down on the 17th of November. Does that ring a bell? I know you've been in the whirlwind of fundraising, so I mean, we can talk about that later.
Okay,
too,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
And I'll find that link and post that in the chat now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Sure.
Greg, did you have another question?
I didn't, but since I'm talking here, Sharon, could you tell me again the program you use, Audio Hijinks, was it?
Yeah, sometimes it feels like a hijack, actually, Audio Hijack.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. That's a great program. I don't get any profit for saying so, but I think it's very useful for recording audio online and also for creating audio
For PC it was Rocket.
Rocket, and but are the two for PCs.
Sharon, you kind of emphasized something that comes through with your presentation too, that a lot really has to do with the fact that you're able to keep up a lot of positive energy in your group. And is there anything that you do consciously on a regular basis to keep it that way?
I think the only thing is just keeping them together regularly and keeping opportunities for those individuals to interact regularly is kind of the biggest thing that I do. The staff meetings are always really fun. We'll have like pre-pandemic, the staff meetings would also be sort of a potluck so that, after the meeting, they could all hang out and talk. And, I think just the fact that we're a volunteer-run station and we need people to help out a lot, and then people show up and help out and they're doing different things together, that just creates a lot of bonds between individuals when they're working on projects together. So, I think just keeping them together is the key, keeping them hanging out, good times, buying pizza and beer, that's really probably the key.
Do you run into what we were discussing with Dave Ashton about some people wanting to be paid and kind of not getting the volunteer thing?
I mean, we have run into that, but we really make it very clear in the beginning that all the DJs are volunteers, and that there's no money in this for you. And if you try to make money off your radio show, that's, there are ways that people can, promote themselves in their personal endeavors, but we, just by being a DJ on air, but we do not let them actively promote any commercial endeavor that includes their bands or their record labels or whatever. But just being a personality on the radio, one of our DJs, Jackson Lee Swain, is also a musician by the name of Jackson Lee Swain. So, so in that way it can enable their careers, but we just make it really clear in the beginning that this is a non-profit community radio station, and we're all in it together, and we're all volunteering our time. And if you don't love to do it, then there's must be some other opportunity for you somewhere else, because it's just all about the love, for sure. So and that's kind of some of our marketing is that we're doing it for the love and stuff like that. So I don't think anyone comes to our station with the expectation that they're going to make any money, because we don't even make any money, and we do this thing. I mean, Sean and I get a very, very small, sort of below poverty stipend, but yeah, there's no money for anybody so far in this radio station.
Marie has a question.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment, and I've mentioned this before, is when we've had a few people who have been incensed that we would ask that they become a member of the radio station, which is $2 a month. And they've been incensed with all of the work that they put into their shows, and they do. But no one ever asks how much at the administrative level time anybody puts in and doesn't get paid. But my question is, do you ever have anybody, DJs or anyone else at the station, asking for numbers, how many listeners you have? And if so, do you have a way of measuring that?
No, we don't. And that's what I tell them. The FM, we don't, obviously we can't afford Arbitron or any of those kind of ratings. So no, we don't have that. And we can kind of get some internet numbers, but I don't think I understand them properly. So when I get listener numbers, if I really want to get to know where someone's listening from or how many, I have to watch it in live time. So I'm not going to do that. And I kind of just explain to the DJs, so yeah, I get that sometimes. And then we've come up with this kind of demographics sheet, like what are, because you do get that in grants and stuff. And we keep it really vague. It's like, well, we have the potential to reach, the population of Louisville or whatever. And that's kind of how we do that. But yeah, I kind of really divert that question when the DJs ask me how many listeners. I really tell them I just don't know. And then the membership thing too, I'll just address that. We do require our DJs to be members of the station, which is $97.10 a month. I mean, a month, that would really be a lot, sorry, a year. But if they give us a piece of art, two-dimensional, because of storage, a piece of two-dimensional art, original art that they have made, then we cut the membership in half. So yeah, it's like, less than $5 a month. And we have had when we first instituted that, we had a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but a few like loud people that didn't like that. And then, they just kind of got over it. And ultimately those were people that weren't really interested or invested in helping the station anyway. They were kind of more in it for themselves anyway, it seemed like. So most people haven't had any problem with that minimal investment. If you're on a soccer team or you're a member of a gym or anything like that, you're going to have to pay a lot more than that to get any kind of benefits. And then I also just really emphasize like what you're talking about, the administrative work it takes to keep, the station running, to keep it clean, the money it costs to insure the station. And then of course we have broadcasters insurance that is insuring us against stupid things people say on air. So, so that insurance is very expensive and it's specifically for them. And then the music licensing fees. So I like to talk to them about all these kinds of things that if they were out there on their own with their own little radio station that they would have to be paying for anyway. And so it's a lot cheaper when we all pay for it together. And then we do offer for people, we don't want finances to be a reason why people don't do a show. So we really encourage that membership, and we do say it's required, but there are ways that they can volunteer behind the scenes, not on air, but doing different things around the radio station to pay for that membership if necessary.
I see, Davine, you raised your hand. No? Okay.
What too, Debbie?
Maybe she answered you already. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thanks again. Sharon Scott, WXOX of Louisville.
Check us out.
And we'll go to Randi Zimmerman of WMNF in Tampa.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm very sorry that I'm so late. I had a board mandated meeting. And if I could just add, the artwork on the building is amazing. As both a science geek and an art lover and radio activist, I just think that's phenomenal. That's like a very, very profitable t-shirt or something in the making right there. So thank you all for being here. And what I'm going to talk about is how we use social media and data at WMNF. Can folks see that as a full screen? Cool.
Yeah.
And this was put together by myself and Ken Apperson, who is our social media coordinator. And we kind of just have this major campaign going about best practices. When I got here, I wanted to make sure that we don't sound like a Saturday Night Live skit and we don't sound like commercial radio, but we occupy the very vast creative space between. And by the way, how much time do I have to talk? Because I want to make sure that I don't go over and bore people to death.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you can go as long as you want, and if people need to leave, they can.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other alternative is that, Randi, if you prefer, we actually don't have plans for next week. If you want to take next week and, because I don't know how many people, how long, let's find out how long people can stay. Because if people can stay, that's great. But I don't want folks to miss out on this. What about the rest of you? You okay with staying, or do you want to wait for next week? Okay, I'm not seeing.
I don't hear anybody.
So let's
Marie
just
can
say-
stay.
So let's
What?
say I can probably keep it really close to 15 minutes and I won't go over 15
Okay,
minutes.
so
if
let's
that's helpful.
keep going. Yeah.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay. So we're on this course of best practices and I'm a data dork. So I follow data and I'm going to show you how social media and data interplay. So we actually do have some information about our listeners. I'm going to tell you why social media is important to our mission. I'm going to tell you what we learned about our listeners and share what we've learned so far about the impact of our social media campaigns, as well as provide you some detail about things you can do specifically regarding social media. And for us, specifically Facebook, it just seems to blend with our demographic. We've built up a lot of followers. So I'm using Facebook as an example here, but there are different strategies that you have to use for different platforms because of the algorithms that they use. So probably a lot like you folks, our mission is listener-supported community radio. We're a station that celebrates cultural diversity, promotes community engagement, committed to equality, peace, economic justice. We provide broadcasts and other forums with grassroots local emphasis that promote creative, musical, and political vitality. So we very simply use social media because the more people hear it, when more people are listening. And that's why we do it. We don't do it to generate revenue. We don't do it to be part of the commercial radio scene. Very simply, if more people are listening to us, then more people hear what our message is, which is really the key for what drives us at WMNF. So social media is websites, applications that encourage people to share content or participate in social networking. And you all know some of these things already: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And we have, for example, 3 separate pages on Facebook. We have the community radio page, which gets about 26,000 likes. We get our news page, which has about 3.8 thousand likes, and our music, which gets 22.1 thousand likes. So our main community page gets approximately 10 times more than our other pages. But there are people who are like, nope, only going to listen to music. Nope, only going to listen to news. But broad speaking, our WMNF community radio, and there's a little bit of crossover, but not as much as one might think. So our other social media numbers, just so you have an idea, our Instagram, we've got 5,700 followers on our WMNF Instagram page. WMNF News has 968 followers. And then we have a show, Latinx, and we have a variety of shows, both on Facebook and Instagram, which have their own pages, their own followers. WMNF on Twitter has 11,000 followers and 6,700 followers on our WMNF News page on Twitter. So you can see how these numbers vary quite a bit. And again, there's some crossover, but from what we can tell, not a whole lot. So how we know what we know about listeners, we're on Google Analytics, which is free for not-for-profits, and we follow trends. So again, I'm a data dork, and I can tell you that individual numbers mean very little. That 60 number doesn't mean very much. That 23,000 number, all these numbers don't mean much. What matters is the trends. What's happening to listeners over time? This is the course of a week. So this dip, I can tell you, I can look at any week and I can tell you where Sunday is. That's where our dip is, every day of the week. I get my, generally speaking, active users in the moment. I also see how they're coming to me. So they're coming to me from what's called an organic search, which basically means they looked up something else and they got an ad or a link to my radio station showed up and they clicked on it. The most common organic search is going to be free radio on a Monday morning, guaranteed. And that's how they get to us. We also get a lot of people who look for Florida radio. They come to us that way. I also see that I have listeners in Germany. I have listeners in the Seychelles. There are days where I have more listeners in Denmark than I have in St. Petersburg, which is on the other side of the bay. It depends on the show. And that's the other thing I get here is I get by day part, the number of listeners who listen to me by day part. So every hour, I get a roughly speaking number of listeners who are finding us. And this is very, very helpful. Again, trends are far more important than that moment in time. General streaming behavior, and we assume the same for broadcasts. Generally speaking, streaming is a little younger, a little more male than broadcast, but generally speaking, we assume the same things. So we know more people come to WMNF.org to listen than to read. We know that if I can keep you for 5 minutes, I'm going to keep you for 3 hours. That means one song and a music break, or from song to song, is going to make the difference between a listener becoming a day-long listener or just coming and leaving. Show by show, our listeners are getting younger. And what I mean by that is there are individual shows that are now no longer 55 plus, but now we're starting to bring in that audience of 35 plus, because I get that demographic data. So right now I've got this bimodal curve going on with my age demographics, where I've got shows that are like rock and roll music from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the roots of rock and roll. That is bringing all these 35-year-olds, because quite simply, they never heard it before, and their parents are also too young to have played it on the oldie station while they were taking their kids to school in the car. Same thing with our Grateful Dead hour. Brand new to these 35-year-olds. They know the Grateful Dead, now they're listening to it. As I said, our most popular search term is free radio. We also do ad campaigns, and social media have been really successful because, frankly, really good content drives connection. So this is an example of what happens during an ad buy and good content. So in this February spike, we had Alt-J, which we got on like a whim, and we were able to not only link their social media for organic searches for when people were following Alt-J, but also our shows. And then we did like a week-long thing of stuff leading up to them and then things afterwards. So we had this great spike of about 40,000 views on our Facebook page, and our Instagram also spiked during that time to about 39,000. So again, the goal is, how do we keep them here? How do we keep having them come back? So we also recognize the type of content that works on social media. So well-known artists and linking to their social media is a big deal. Also something that we call the inspiring thing. The inspiring post is very helpful. And the engagement post. An engagement post is probably the easiest thing to do. And remember, social media is about connection. So if you can ask people a question, simple things like, what album were you listening to during your first kiss, right? Or what are you doing this morning as you're listening to the radio? Simple things. Wish you could play the world's tiniest violin. These things also drive engagement. And what's cool about that is it also will drive organic searches. So here's another example. So this is a call to the music lovers out there. What instrument do you wish you picked up as a kid? Let us know. Simple thing. Reached 674 people, got 54 likes. Simple question. All you had to do is ask a question, and it drives social media content. And then the other thing that happens, which I'll share later, is it drives you into other people's social media as well.
So Randi, where are you asking that question?
On our Facebook pages.
So you just like post every day a question or something like that?
So anything from on our major social media page or on the programmer's page on their individual show page, and then they'll hashtag us, the WMNF community page or the WMNF music page, and that will extend into ours. So people who are looking at our stuff, they see it gets liked, and then everybody who's liked it, our page goes up on their screen when they open up their Facebook.
And what is the inspiring thing?
I really feel great this morning. Simple things like that. I'm feeling a good day coming on. Simple things like that. Just people will like it because it's inspiring.
So you just post that on the Facebook page?
That's it. Facebook or Instagram or something with a picture.
Okay.
So one of the best ways to start seeing growth is be consistent. So you want to post every day on, 2 days before your show, or post it an hour before your show. Being consistent really matters. And you see these tens of spikes, and people will come to you over and over again because they're now looking for you. Consistent time of day, consistent type of content. You're training your audience as what they're going to expect from you from your social media. Live streaming is your friend. So even though we do radio, we have tripods to set up inside our studios, and you can just wave to your fans. You can have that set up. And it also gives you a direct line of communication to your audience. And that line goes both ways. People will say things, they'll talk to you, they'll send your hearts, they'll say that they're liking, we watch the numbers, the programmers watch the numbers all the time go up and down. So they know when they've done a really good set or strung together 2 really good songs. Now, here again is some simple rules just for Facebook. It's a little different for Twitter and Instagram, what we found so far. So basically, the more you get people to click on your page or to click on your site or to like you, the algorithm is going to continue to bring people back to your page because you've already liked them. They're going to make you like them more. The other thing that it does is it gives it to other people who are in your world, right? Because this is about connection, and that's how the algorithm works. So if they react to one of your posts, go to the next step and comment. So you want to comment back to people who have made comments to you as quickly as possible. And again, that's going to drive more people to start talking back to you and get engagement. And that activates those algorithms to connect you to other people. Because if you're connecting to one group, they assume you'll connect to the people who are connected to those people. So the other goal of Facebook is to keep you on as long as possible. They will filter other social media posts. Facebook hates YouTube. So the moment you start putting YouTube sites or links on your Facebook page, chances are that link or site will never be moved up in the order because of their competition. So you want to do other things. You want to pretend your social media presence is a party that you are throwing. This is like a major mindset. I'm throwing this party on social media. How do I get people to come to the party? How do I get people to interact? How do I create like those little talk situations or games that you're going to create at a party to get people engaging with one another, especially strangers? These are the types of content that's going to drive more content and going to move your posts up in everybody's feed. So here's an example. So Laura Taylor, who does a show on Saturdays, she just posted on her social media site, her personal site, which has far more than even her show page. So say something, if you're listening, may I ask what you're doing right now? And she got 12 comments, but it was seen by 81 people. So again, it's not only going to be looked at 81 people, but those 81 people is going to move up on those friends' pages as well. So you want to respond to comments and messages, go that extra mile. Hey, great job on that thing you did. Just say thanks. No, you want to do more than that. When people comment, this is an opportunity for engagement. Comments are an open door. Don't just say thanks. Use the opportunity to ask them back. Oh, great job on that thing you did. So what specifically did you do? Or, hey, I really liked your picture that you posted on your page too. So say something more personal, get familiar, and respond quickly. Get people talking to each other. This again really drives those algorithms. Remember, you're a party. So you're going to walk up to a group of people. You're going to say, hey, I know that you're an architect and you're just building a new house. Maybe y'all should talk about that. So you want to encourage that kind of engagement. You want to avoid external links. As I said, avoid YouTube, avoid being sporadic and seldom. You want to avoid posting photos and videos without captions. Give people a reason to post and comment. Posting low quality video images or overloading on promotional posts. So again, we're using social media because we want more people to hear the mission of WMNF. That's our message. And the best practices for creating posts are basically post media and captions with engagement in mind, respond to comments and messages, go that little extra mile, and get them talking to each other. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Randi. I thought that was very interesting and refreshing on looking at trends. That's something we haven't talked about before. Trends as opposed to numbers. That's really interesting.
Again, as a researcher, as a statistician, the individual numbers at a given day and time are very useless. The thing to do with Google Analytics is you can make it create these reports so that you don't have to then move all that data into spreadsheet and access it that way. I still make my own spreadsheets. I still do my own numbers. Just like I said, I'm a data dork and I want to be a little bit more control of how that happens. I also want to drill down in different ways than Google Analytics does. So.
Yeah. Makes me
Wow,
think.
that
What
was
were you going to
great.
say, Ursula?
Yeah, I mean, that we could break that presentation down into a whole hour of point by point. I guess one thing I was trying to figure out was, are you, when people are doing their radio shows, you're streaming it on Facebook too? Is that what I understood?
Some people are, yes.
So how do you deal with the copyright issue? Because in my experience, Facebook shuts you down pretty quickly if you're playing copyrighted music.
So we get away with it for, Facebook hasn't shut us down yet, simply. And I don't know why, but they haven't. And maybe that's
Great, you've been lucky.
Yes, pretty much. Now, the live music showcase does it religiously, but they've got basically original bands playing their original stuff, and maybe they'll do 1 or 2 covers an hour. So that might be another way that they're not getting caught. I know one of our overnight shows does it, which also might be a reason that they're not getting caught.
Oh, interesting. Mhm.
Marie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Do you make, do you watch that you don't put images up that are copyrighted, or just pull images off of someplace on the internet that would go along with a message?
Yeah, actually, our News and Public Affairs Director is a huge stickler for that. So we're very lucky. We've been around since 1979, and we have, well over 15,000 images. And we also have volunteer photographers who are now going out and bringing in other images from around the Bay Area that we can add to our news articles that we're posting online, so that we have original content that belongs to us. We do have, we pay a service for AP photos, which is really not working for us. So we're about to get a subscription to Getty Images if we need it. But we're trying to use more and more of our own content.
Yeah, that's something that I've been talking to people who've been posting on our Facebook, and we're still getting images up that have been taken by private organizations. The other thing I was going to ask was about Facebook pages. We have someone who's come in and suggested that if any of our programmers or producers don't have a Facebook page that is just about their show, that they use their personal Facebook page. And that has always bothered me, because we had one person who did that, and on their Facebook page, there were a bunch of ads for, big companies, along with all their personal information. Does everyone here have their people put up a Facebook page just for their show?
We discourage people using their personal page for WMNF stuff, because again, we make it clear in both our social media and our programmers agreement that the name WMNF and 88.5, that's property of the foundation. That's not property of other people. So, and we encourage people to have their own show page separate from their personal page. And again, some programmers, they have both, and they find that, like Laura Taylor, she happens to have way more followers of her personal page than her show page. And then there are other programmers like Dr. Bob with the 60s shows, it's just the opposite. He has far more people following the 60s show than his personal page. But either way, we kind of intermittently follow both to make sure that the personal pages that are referencing WMNF stuff are kind of in line with how we want our image to be. But we can't control it, so,
So Randy, the kind of post that you were talking about, the inspiring and the engagement, is this something that you essentially ask your producers to do? Or is there somebody at the station on the management level that's assigned to do that? Or how does it actually happen in practical terms?
So what you watched is a slightly truncated version of a training that we did for all of our programmers. And because we're WMNF and because we don't want to have a top-down approach to social media like anything else, but we do have kind of a mission and a mission-driven approach to things. We do have a social media coordinator, but his goal is, here's what I learned about social media that we'd like you to do on your social media page that will help expand the reach of your show or of what you're trying to do for WMNF. So
it happens. So it happens through the producers, really, ultimately, on their social. Yeah.
And through the music pages governed by our program director, Sam, who you met, and our news and public affairs were the news pages governed by Sean, who's our news and public affairs director. So there's some stuff that is us, and there's individual shows which belong to the individual producers or which they control the social media. But again, we feel it's important to both deal with our image plus how to get the message out in a way that we have found works.
Okay, interesting. And this I think it's a stupid question, but I don't.
No such thing.
How do you know the age? You know, you were talking about the demographics. How do you know their age?
So Google Analytics does demographics, just like I was able to figure out how many people in the hour. Now it's based on assumptions, which is why again, as a statistician, or someone who's trained in statistics, I can tell you that they're based on assumptions, based on those people's, whatever they may say or answer and other things, right? Facebook has all this information on people. So,
so Google Analytics,
right,
basically.
Right. It's highly likely, but not an absolute. So
wow.
I can tell you that right now, 60% of my listeners are in that marketing sweet spot between 35 to 55 years old. And I follow their segments, which is the same for any other marketing thing. And I know, again, roughly speaking, I've got more 35-year-olds for certain 35 to 44-year-olds than for other shows. In other shows, I've got more 55 to 64-year-olds. But I'm not going to say I have 3,000 people listening here or I have 2,000 people listening there. Roughly speaking, I know that I've got about 100,000 listeners a week, about 85,000 on broadcast and about 15,000 on streaming, and that's going to fluctuate. So I can get gender and I can get age based on Google Analytics assumptions. It's no different than Nielsen's. It's no better, no worse than Nielsen numbers.
Yeah.
Also based on assumptions.
Yeah.
Marie.
Do you use hashtags in your Facebook posts?
Yes.
As
often as possible.
Okay, some examples.
So I will I post from my personal page. And the reason I post from my personal page is because, again, that's going to create an organic search. I've got about 360 some odd followers on Facebook. So if they like anything, anytime somebody likes something that I do to WMNF and then I hashtag WMNF, anytime I post on WMNF, it'll rise up on their post because they liked me. Plus, WMNF stuff is going to show up now on their page as well because I hashtagged.
You explained that well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And whatever we're doing, we're still learning, honestly. And they change the algorithms all the time. So this is a moving target for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot to absorb. Thank you. That's really great. Great, dense information.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that is good information.
I
Glad to help.
have another question.
Sure.
Where would you put videos of your shows, since Facebook doesn't like, what was it? Facebook doesn't like
YouTube.
Yeah.
doesn't like
We-
YouTube.
Well, we actually have a YouTube channel, so we will post videos on YouTube. We do have some news videos that we will sometimes post on our website. And the other thing is Instagram has something called Reels. Instagram loves Reels. If you put up little short videos or a series of photographs on Instagram, that's where you want to go with short videos, but keep it short. And by the way, hashtags are great on Facebook. Hashtags will put a dampening algorithm on your Instagram account. So don't do many hashtags. Maybe do one hashtag on your Instagram, but Facebook, you can totally load up on hashtags.
That's interesting what you said about YouTube, because I noticed that I recently rejoined Facebook, I guess, this past year, and I would put up a YouTube video and no one would comment on it at all. And now that you're saying that the company doesn't like YouTube, so does that mean that they made an algorithm to kind of suppress whenever people would like YouTube videos? So it just became a habit that no one did it.
Yes, and it rarely will even show up. Like you might post a YouTube video and your friends may not even see it because of the dampening.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Okay.
So if you want to post some kind of video on Facebook, connect it to your Instagram.
Or just like from your own phone.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you put it on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook likes that?
Facebook and Instagram are the same company.
Oh, right. So then they're happy.
Well, Twitter people put up YouTubes.
Cool.
They seem to watch them. Yeah, that's interesting. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, Randi. That was
Thank you for letting
great.
me share.
Yeah. So Randi Zimmerman, WMNF in Tampa. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was great to have you, and to all our presenters. We enjoyed being with you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, and Louis and Greg, any final thoughts? It was good to have you here, but any final comments?
Well, I think the word that I'm going to come away with is enthusiasm. That's something that we're trying to find again in our station. I think we peaked about 10 years ago, even though we're only about 35 miles from KGNU. It's a whole different demographic. We only had the potential for maybe 5,000 listeners in our small community. And it's everybody knows everybody kind of place. But I think 10 years ago, we had 50 DJs, 4 talk shows. I did one for 22 years, and I had at least 1,000 people on the show, and there's only 5,000 people in the community. So at some point, just about everybody was on the radio, every musician, every politician. And I think we, in a way, almost ran our course. So now we're trying to redefine ourselves. So conversations like this are really important to us, and I really appreciate you putting it together.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Greg, and I think it's important that you can articulate that you're at that point. You know what I mean? That's a conscious thing, that there's a reinvention going on.
Yeah, we want to find our purpose again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for joining us, and come back. And like we said, Randi, I mentioned at the beginning of the show too that a lot of people wrote and said they are going to watch the recording because they weren't able to come today, but the recording will be up. So,
Cool.
you know, that I know we went through Randi's presentation pretty quickly, but on the recording, it can be stopped and, you know, thought about carefully. Louis, any comments from you before we go? It's such a treat to see you.
Hi, Ursula. Yeah, we find we're in a community of less than 3,000 people that is turning into a bedroom community for Anchorage. And like others, we find our relevance dropping, you know, like 10 years ago, we were in our prime, and I'm being pretty much a rural kind of community. It's nice to hear what large cities are doing, and we can apply those things here. But the last couple of years of COVID has kind of tightened our reins. And one of my questions, I guess, to everybody would be, how do you see us coming out of this? No friends, no family, no guests, back out into the community. I mean, I personally am even wary of going into other businesses with remotes.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Louis. I mean, I was conscious today that all three of our presenters are in metropolitan areas. And, you know, here in Iowa, I mean, Ames is doing okay, but I've been in a number of communities in Iowa that were smaller, and they're not coming back from the pandemic. They're, you know, you can really see that they have lost a lot of momentum. And I think it's, and even Ames is having trouble, you know, and Ames is a college town. So maybe this is, I don't know, Stephanie, this is a tough topic to take on, but maybe, you know, in the next few months, we can try and find some people who can talk about coming back as a rural station. You know, it's a really serious thing. I mean, there's some towns in Iowa that were really flourishing prior to the pandemic, and they're just not coming back anymore. And so it's a topic worth really talking about. If we can find somebody who, you know, who wants to talk about
Someone
it.
crack the code.
Yeah, it's probably still in the, you know, I don't know how far along people are, you know, I think people are still trying to figure out what to do. But it's a good topic. It's a good issue to bring up. I do think it's a little bit easier in the large metropolitan areas because you've got the surplus of energy that you just don't have. I mean, even here in Ames, which is a pretty strong town, Ames is, you know, Ames is struggling to get back its energy.
As a final thank you, I'd like to thank Sharon for helping to produce Dobry Den with Andre and Megan. It's a really, you wouldn't think, but it's a really relevant program here.
Excellent. Thank you so
Louis,
much.
Louis,
I'll
I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
I was just say that's wonderful. Yeah, they're such a neat couple, and that show is just really powerful. Thank you for airing it. We got thrown off on getting them up on audio port for the past couple of weeks with our fundraising, but we should get it back going this week. So thanks for tuning in. I just think it's yeah, it's a really important, interesting show just to hear the music of Ukraine, to hear somebody speaking from a first person experience, you know, what's going on over there. So yeah, thanks.
So I know you had Andre on there, and Megan. Who's Megan? Is she new?
No, they're husband and wife team, and they've been doing the show together. She used to come on air more, but right now she's helping more at the behind the scenes production, and Andre is just being the voice of it.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, but they do work on it together.
Louis, if you or anybody you know is interested, you know, we're working together with this radio network in Ukraine, and they really get a lot out of Americans sending them messages of encouragement. Because right now, everybody's really, really feeling this war. It's, you know, it's getting hard for everybody. So if you or anybody you in your area, you know, would feel moved to do so, the number to call is 510-883-3115. And if you or anybody else on the here can leave a message, we have Ukrainians here in Ames who can, you know, translate it. And then we send a composite of your message and the translation over to Ukraine. And they really, really appreciate it. It's a real slog right now.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, we've kind of run out of callers, so we're looking for more people to call in and, you know, keep the messages coming. They really get a lot out of it. Thanks.
Okay, I see we're coming up at 5 o'clock, so I want to thank everyone again for coming and presenting and spending time with us, taking time out of your day. So thank you guys. This was a really nice time.
Presentation.
Really nice conversation. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
great
Ursula.
day, and we'll see you again sometime.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
everybody's
Sounds good.
effort.
Bye-bye.